Any questions? Let's start with the questions.
What is the difference in your tradition between the mind and the self?
Mind and the self.
Yes.
Mind and the self. Self, we say self. So we say that the mind, some people say that the mind is the self. Yeah? So for example, when the mind feels fear, and then the people say, it's I who feel fear. Yeah? But it's the mind who feel fear. Or maybe, the mind is happy, and then the people say, I'm happy. Yeah? So they, and then they confuse I with the mind. Right? And we say, the mind is there, but self is not there. Yeah? So self is just a label, and then you label on the five skandhas. Yeah, the body, the mind. So you label on the five skandhas, right? And then you say, so when the body is in pain, and you say it's me, right? And then when the mind is in pain, so you say it's I am in pain. Right? But if you check properly, there's no I. Yeah? It's just the body and the mind. And we have these 7 ways to know that there is no self. So there's 7 reasons why there is no self. Yeah, and the first reason, we say is there's no self in the body, or there's no self in the mind. Yeah, so if you check properly, there's no self, but we still think there is self because we have the concept, and we still think, okay, the mind is the self, or maybe the body is the self. But if you check properly, there's no self on the mind or on the body. Yeah. And if you, so there are 7 ways to check if the self is on the body or the mind. Yeah. And some people say, so now we have to check. And some people say self and the body are one. Yeah. Some people say, so there is a self, but self and the body is one. And then, so we say self and the body is not one, because self is one, and then the body is many. If self and the body is one, then self should be many, or the body should be one, because they are one. Yeah. So for example, the car and then the car parts, the parts of the car. Yeah. So the car and the parts of the car, so they're not one. They're not one because car parts are many, and then the car is just one. Yeah? If you say the car and the car parts are one, then you should either say the car is also many, like the car parts, right? Then maybe you can also say, the car part is one because the car is one. Yeah? So from this, so we can say, okay, the car and the car parts are not one. Yeah? So likewise, self and the skandhas are not one because of this reason. Yeah? And then comes the second, and then some people say, so maybe self is not one with the skandhas, self is not one with the body, self and then the bodies are 2 different things, or self and the mind is 2 different things. And that's also not possible. Yeah? If you check properly, if things are 2 different things, and then we should see 2 different things. Yeah? For example, the phone and then the cup are 2 different things, so we can see 2 different things. But if you look at the self and then the mind, you cannot find self, when there is no mind and the body. Yeah. So if self and the skandhas are 2 different things, we should be able to separate them, or we should be able to find them separately. But then, the car and the car parts. Yeah? So we cannot find car when there's no car parts. Yeah. So that's why, self and then self and the skandhas, maybe the car and the car parts are not 2 different things also. Right? So where is the self? Self is not one. Self is not one with the skandhas. Self is not different with the skandhas. So where is the self? And the same thing with the car and the car parts. the car is not one with the karpas. The car is not a separate thing from a karpas. And then some people say, oh, so maybe the car has the karpas. Self has the body, right? And that's the same thing. Self does not has a body, because if someone has something, it should be two different things. Like a man having a hat. Yeah? So when a man has a hat, so we can see two different things. But if you check properly, you can't find self and the body parts two different things, right? There's no self, so when there's no body, and then there's no body, yeah. So that's why self and the bodies are not two different things. When the self and the bodies are not two different things, you can't say self has the body or the body has the self. If something has something, it should be two different things. Like I have the phone, so I can say the phone is there, I'm here, we are two different things. So if you check properly, self is not one with the skandhas, self is not different with the skandhas, self does not have, the skandhas. So that's why, there is no self. Right? So where is the self? And then we say, okay, since, when you check properly, there is no self, so there's no I. It's just a concept. It's just the tendency that makes you think, self is there. Right? It's just a habit, so when your body is in pain and then, so you say, I'm in pain. So that's a habit. And also, so when your mind is happy and you say, I'm happy. Yeah, that's also a habit. Right? So when you see there's no self, and then slowly you can remove the habit, right? And then slowly you can see, okay, I'm not in pain. Maybe, the mind is thinking, and then the body is in pain, and all these things. Yeah? So you have to train in that, to see that way. But first you need to know that there is no self, and then you meditate. Yeah. So, and also now person A and B and C. So person A sees the dog image as the dog. Person B also sees the dog's image as a dog, but person C knows the dog's image is not a dog. Yeah. So so why does person A and B thinks the dog image is the dog? Yeah, because we said that person A thinks the dog's image is the dog. Person B also thinks the dog image is the dog, but kept by someone else. So why do person A and B thinks the dog's image is the dog? And why don't person C thinks that way? Yeah. So why person C thinks the dog image is not the dog, but it's the dog's image? Yeah, and that's because we say, and that's because from the dog side, yeah, from the dog's image side, he acts like a dog. Yeah. He also, behaves like a dog. He barks like a dog. He eats and sleeps, right, like a dog. And then person A and B, they see that, right, and then they see that with their five senses. Yeah. And then they judge through their five senses, right, and then they don't examine, right. And then so when they see, okay, the dog's image is, barking at you, is also, smiling at you maybe, and also doing all these dogs think, and then you think, okay, this is a real dog. Yeah. Okay, and then so when they think, okay, the dog's image is a real dog, and then they get attached, and then they do an action, and this action will also, strengthen their belief. Yeah. And then the more you do actions with emotions, it will, strengthen your belief, and then the more you will think, oh, it's a real dog, because now you're doing an action. Yeah? And now you think it's real, and you have an emotion, and then you're attached, and then you try to go near the dog, and you try to play with the dog, and this actually will also strengthen your habit. Yeah? And then your imprint gets stronger and stronger. So that's why that's why we say there's no mind training if you do things with self-attachment. Yeah. So when you do something with self-attachment, so you're just trying to strengthen your habit. Yeah. And if you do something with no self-attachment and any action, and then it's mind training. But if you do something with self-attachment, yeah, so you think I'm there, and then you do an action, and this action, might be a positive action, might be a negative action, but they are not mind training, because it's not combating the self-changing mind. Yeah? So it's just trying to strengthen the self-changing mind, because you think I'm there and then you do the action. Yeah. So for example, so for example, a few days ago I saw a video where I saw where I saw a dog, and then I saw a dog, and then so there was also a mirror in front of the dog. Yeah, and then the dog sees the mirror, and then the dog sees its image there. Yeah, and the dog sees its image on the mirror, and when the dog sees its image on the mirror, he barks at the he barks at the image, and then the image barks back. Yeah? And then he shows his teeth, and then and then the image on the mirror shows back his teeth. Yeah. So I think and then slowly, and that's because he has no idea. Yeah. And then that's because he does not know that the image is himself, right? So he does not recognize himself. So when you don't recognize yourself, yeah, and then he thinks it's something out there, and then he barks, and then comes emotion, then comes action, and then you do something, and then comes the karma, and then comes samsara and everything. Right? Yeah. And also, so there's now two factors to believe that the dog's image is the dog. This person A or person B, they have the two factors. Yeah, they have the two factors. So one factor is the image itself. So the dog's image is there by the karma. I mean by a cause. So the dog image is there. Yeah, so that's the first factor. And then the second factor is person A and B. He does not know the reality of the dog's image. Yeah, so he has the ignorant mind. He does not know the reality of the dog's image. He does not know the reality of the legs of the leg. Yeah, so when these two factors meet, and then he thinks the dog is real. Yeah, so the first factor is the dog image is there, is caused by something else, and then the second factor is his own concept. Yeah, he thinks, okay, the dog is there because he does not know the reality of the dog's image. But then for the person C, he only has one factor. Yeah, he only has the dog's image is there. He only sees the dog's image, but he does not have the second factor, which is that he knows the reality of the dog's image. He knows the reality of the leg, so he does not have the ignorant mind. And then for him, he just sees the image, but there's no attachment, and there's no self-clinging. Yeah. So for the person C, when he sees the dog's image, he won't judge. Yeah? He won't judge. He won't try to attach. He won't try to avoid, right? And he just tries to see the experience of the dog's image, and he just tries to see the nature of the dog's image for the person C. Yes, he knows what the nature is, and then he tries to sit on the nature. But person A and B, since they don't know the nature of the dog's image, and then they try to judge, and then they try to attach, and now they're not aware. Yes, when you say aware, you have to stay on the object. But now they're, so they lose the object, and now they have concept and then on. Yeah. So likewise, so how will person C show person A and B, that the dog's image is not the dog, but is the dog's image. Yes. How will the person C show that? Right. So we have these many ways in the text. Right? And then the main way is to show that the dog's image has a cause. Right? If something has a cause, if something has a cause to be there, then it's really not there. It's caused by a negative mind. Yeah. So we also say, so that's the king of the reason. Yeah. The king of the reason is to show that it has a cause. Yes. If you show something that it has a cause, then it means it is not truly there. It is just there because it has a cause. When the cause is not there, it is not there. Yeah. So by naturally, by inherently, it is not there. It is just there by cause. Yeah. And then, you know, so you can also bring that to your life, and then bring that to I. Yeah. So you can also think, you know, that your life is not, you know, truly there. I mean, you know, so you know, so now you think, okay, life is there, and then, you know, so we have these things are truly there. But then if you, so when you meditate, and then you have to think, okay, you know, life is not truly there, right? And you just see life is truly there because of two factors. Yes, you have to, you know, so when you meditate, also you have to think, okay, the life is not truly there, the computer is not truly there, but I see them because I have the two factors. The first factor is the karma, the second factor is the ignorant mind. Yeah, and also the same thing with I. Yeah, so you have to, you know, self is not truly there, but I think the self, you know, for me, I think self is there because I have the two causes, the two factors. The first factor is the, you know, is the cause and condition, and then the second factor is the ignorant mind. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and also, you know, so what, and then comes the right view and the wrong view. You know, so the right view, I mean, the person C has the right view, person A and B has the wrong view. Yeah. So person A has the right view. So person C has the right view. So what is the view of the person C? If you ask, so the person C, he sees the dog's image as a lake. Yeah, and he also sees that the dog's image has a cause. Yeah, okay, so that's the right view. And then the wrong view is the person A and then person B's view, which sees the dog's image as a real dog, and then who sees the dog's image as you know, as a real dog, and also sees the dog's image has no cause. Yeah, and also likewise, you know, and then you bring it back to your life also. So we see, so we also have a right view and we also have a wrong view. So our right view is, you know, when you see the appearance of life, right? You know, when you see the appearance of life as not, I mean, you know, the right view is when you see the appearance of life, it's not truly there. Yeah, and then you see the appearance of life as mind. Okay, right? And then you see the karma and then ignorance as the cause of the appearances. So when you have this view, then you have the right view. Yeah. So I will say it again. So a right view is, you know, when you see the appearance not as something out there, but you see the appearance as your own mind, right? Okay, and then you see the appearance has a cause, you know, the karma or the ignorant mind. So that's the right view. And then the wrong view is that you see an appearance something out there, okay, right? And then you see the appearance not as your mind, right? And then you see the appearance has no causes, right? So you think, okay, the phone has no causes, you know, the computer has no cause. Or maybe you might think, you know, the cause is not the mind, but the cause is something else. You know, the cause of me seeing the phone is something else. I mean, I think the science has this view, yeah? I'm not saying the science is wrong, but they say, you know, so we see the phone because the phone, you know, because the phone reflects the light, something like that. So it's not about the mind. Yeah? So, you know, so, and then for them the cause of seeing the phone is because, you know, the phone is reflecting light, or maybe the light is being reflected. But then from the Buddhist point of view, so we say we see things because of two factors, yeah? The karma and then the ignorant mind. You know, so when these two meet, right, and then the mind is also there, and then you see, you know, these things appears to your mind. Yeah. So you know, so we have to try to recognize the dog's image. Yeah. And then the same thing, you know, we should try to recognize you know, the nature of the phenomena. We have to try to recognize the nature of the appearances. We have to try to recognize the nature of the mind also. And then, you know, we have to try to see the purity of the appearances. Because, you know, we say that the appearances is your mind, yeah? So when the appearances are your mind, and then, you know, so your mind is pure, so that's why the appearances are pure. So you have to try to see the purity of the appearances. You know, some people, you know, they say, oh, you know, there's no need for me to be pure, right? You know, the object should be pure for me to see the object is pure, right? But that's the wrong way. Yeah, to see the purity of the object, one should be pure. Yeah, so when one has the right view, and then you can see the purity of the object. And when you don't have the right view, and then you won't see the purity of your appearances. So that's why we also say the Buddha has the pure vision. Yeah, and also the Buddha sees everything as pure. Yeah, so when he, because he sees everything as mind, and then he sees the purity of the mind. So for him, everything is pure vision. Yeah? But for the people who has the duality, for the people who has this two factor, the karma and then the ignorant, for us, we don't have the pure vision. So we see, so we don't see the purity, and then we see something is out there, right? And then we start to judge all these things. Yeah. So for example, if you want to recognize, so we can say, for example, we can say the fear. Yeah? So if fear appears on the mind, and then you have to try to recognize the fear. Yeah. So you have to try to recognize the fear. Try to know that it's your mind's nature. Yeah. And there's no difference between the fear and the mind. Yeah. And not get and then don't try to judge. Don't try to avoid. You just have to experience the nature of the fear. And once you experience that. And once you experience the nature of the fear, and then you realize, okay, it's my own mind that is appearing to me. Right? There's nothing of a fear out there. Yeah. And but if you don't recognize the fear's nature, right? So and then you think the fear is out there, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you get sad, and then you get carried away, right? So that's why in the text we say, when the fear comes. I mean, not just in the meditation period, and also in the post-meditation period. Yeah. So when you are, eating, or when you're going with people, when you're traveling, when fear comes, you have to apply this method. Yeah. Yeah. So we have to apply this method. So when fear comes, it says, don't judge, don't engage, yeah, don't try to grasp. Yeah. So that's also in the post-meditation period, not just in the meditation. So most of these are in the meditation. Yeah. But also. With fears and everything, so you can also do it in the post-meditation. Yeah? So in the post-meditation also, when you have this, sometimes you have these things that is not comfortable, and then you can apply the meditation tricks, and you can still think, okay, it's just my mind playing with me, and then things, and then don't judge, don't engage. And also when fear comes in the post-meditation period, so you have to try to see the purity of the fear. Yeah. So I mean that's quite hard to see the purity of the fear, but so you have to try to see the purity, because fear is just your mind. Yeah. And then the mind is pure by nature, so you have to try to see that, try to experience that in fear. Yeah. Okay. And also try to recognize that fear is not really there. So there's nothing to abandon. I mean, if something is truly there, and then you can say, okay, so I want to abandon and I want to attach. Right? But then fear is not truly there. Yeah? So there's nothing to abandon, and then there's nothing to attach. Right? Yeah. And also, there's something to experience in fear. Yeah. So the nature of the purity. So you have to try to find that, and then try to experience the nature of the purity. It's same thing with the dog's image. And the dog's image is the nature of the lake. Yeah. So you have to try. So when you see the dog's image, you have to try to see that dog's image is the nature of the lake itself. It's not the dog, but it's the nature of the lake. Yeah. So that's why the text says, when fear comes, try to relax. It's not just in meditation, but also in post-meditation. When fear comes, you have to try to relax, try to look at the nature of it, right? And when you're aware, yeah, means when you are aware of the nature of the fear, and then it brings the wisdom. Yeah, so when you try to be aware, if you're not aware of the fear, right, and then there's no wisdom, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you get taken away. But if you see the nature of the fear, if you get aware, right, and if you stick to the, and then if you stick to the nature of the fear, and then you're aware, and then this awareness will bring the wisdom. Yeah.
And then the fear would disappear in that moment of the recognition of its purity? Would the fear be completely gone, vanished?
I think in the beginning the fear keeps coming back, but you have to try to stay in the nature. Yeah, and then the more you're aware, the more you train, and then the fear will be less. But in the beginning, fear will come, and you don't have to judge the fear, right? Fear will come, fear will go, but then when the fear comes, try to stay in the nature of the fear. And then, so the more you train, right? And as long as you train and train, maybe after, because fear is also the result of self-cleansing mind, right? So when you have self-cleansing mind, fear will come. Yeah? So in the post-meditation period, fear might come, and fear will come, happiness will come. Yeah? So we don't have to remove, we don't have to attach. We just have to stay in the nature of the fear, yeah, in the post-meditation period. Because, they keep coming, right? So you don't have to push away, or you don't have to, because, when you try to push the fear away, it means for you the fear is real. Yeah? And then you're not aware of the fear, right? And then you're not in the nature of the fear, and then you lose the fear, and now you think the fear is real, and then you try to push it away, and then it goes worse.
When you are in the nature of the fear, that means you don't feel any fear anymore, is it? There's no being afraid, no, this suffering through fear. It's just gone, yeah? Isn't it?
So, When you try to rest on, the nature of the fear, if you're able to rest for 5 seconds, there's no fear. But that's really hard, so you have to keep going back. Yeah. So 1 second you rest on the nature, and again, the mind thinks the fear is real. Right, so in the beginning it's quite hard, but then the more you're aware, the more you're present, and then the more you can control the fear. But in the beginning, you can't be aware all the time because of the tendencies, and you're not trained properly, right? So you want to be aware, but you can't because you see fear is something out there. Yes, it keeps coming back, and then you try to stay back with mindfulness, and again after 2 seconds you're there again, and again back and forth. But if you do it more and more, and then maybe when you have the calm abiding, and then it's good, yeah? And then you can stay aware, and then you don't have, and then you don't see fear as something out there.
So, for example, if somebody is more trained,
yes,
you could still have fear, but then the fear would disappear in the moment of recognizing its nature, and then maybe come back much later, days or hours or whatever.
Yes, I think, I'm not sure, but I think if someone is trained, then maybe for, so when fear comes, he can also control the fear, and he can just stay on the fear, for 10, 15 to 20 seconds, and then fear might go away. But it's just temporary, because you still have the self-changing mind, and then fear can come from anywhere. Fear has many causes, but then, for the time being, the fear is gone. But for someone who's not trained, for someone who's not trained to be aware, so that's why being aware is very important. Yeah? For someone who's not trained to be aware, for them, just 1-2 seconds, and again the fear is back. So it's going to be quite hard.
But the true nature don't know any fear.
Yes. Yeah, so you have to recognize the true nature, and then once your true nature is out, right, and then you are aware of everything, right? So so that's why we say, okay, when there is so when you're aware, and then the wisdom comes, right? So the more fear, and then the more wisdom. There's also an example where they say, so when the fire is not strong, and then the more wind means the more wind can blow off the fire. But if the fire is strong, and then the more wind, the fire will grow more. Yeah? So likewise, it's the same thing with the mind. So when the mind is not aware, and then more fear will take the mind. So more fear will control the mind. But if when the mind is aware, then more fear means more wisdom. And then fear can come anytime because of self-changing mind. Fear will come and go. So there's no need to remove, and there's no need to attach. You just have to stay on the nature of the fear. Okay, so maybe we can meditate for 5 minutes. Yeah.